Thank you for listening and watching to the 10-Minute Checkpoint podcast with SanchoWest, where I talk about movies, music, video games, sports, wrestling, all in 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and put 10 minutes on the clock. And here we go. All right. Squid Games. Of course, Squid Games is the most popular television show in Netflix's history, which is a wild thing to say considering that Netflix itself has had bangers of shows like Stranger Things and even Bridgerton, which is my wife's favorite. Of course, if you don't know, if you're living underneath a rock, which is totally cool to be living under a rock, it is a Korean-based drama where it's a very, very interesting drama about class, society, about have-nots and the haves, about this is a capitalistic society having money. Like, it's all money-based, money-driven, but the kind of vessel that it's all surrounded by is this mini games that the contestants have to play, and it is the price of murder, death, kill type vibes. If you die, that's it. In IRL, you are gone. And most of the contestants here are desperate need of money. So it's a thing of like, how much are people willing to sacrifice to be able to attain a huge amount of money? It's a very greatly shot, really well acted. And in a sense, like for me personally, it's not as great as people are saying it. It's not like the best thing ever on Netflix. I, for one, are a big fan of like Stranger Things. That's more of my vibe. And at the same time, in terms of television show, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul recently, I really enjoy it. So it's not the greatest television show, but before I lose you, for you Squid Games fans, I still very much enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it. But you need to like knock it down a little bit in terms of hype, because that hype is right now at an all-time high. I can't even open up any social media, TikTok, Instagram, without getting an ad for a Halloween outfit. And no doubt it will be this year's Halloween craze outfit. But the whole point of today's podcast is I began to ponder the question. And I hope you clicked the video for this reason is, would Squid Games, the video game, work? As I mentioned, it is kind of like a game show premise. All the contestants, not combatants. Well, we get it. Don't want to spoil too much for you. But essentially, they have to go through a series of mini games that are all surrounded by childhood type mini games. First one being red light, green light, which is the most popular. Don't want to spoil everything, but essentially the herd or the amount of contestants get whittled down to there's an ultimate number one winner, and they win all the moolah, clams, money, bucks, whatever you want to call it. There's only one winner, and they go home with all the cash. So that is essentially at its core. And when you kind of describe it like that, there is a game that already exists, and that's called Fall Guys. Fall Guys by Mediatonic is the same concept. It is a game show. If you don't never played it or you never really paid attention to the kind of core of Fall Guys, it's a game show, and then all these little beans go ahead and compete to be the last one standing to get the crown. It's already there. There's already a variety of mini games that kind of go back to the childhood. A lot of platforming, a jump rope. There's all of these kind of crazy things that Fall Guys leans into. And it in itself was a great pop when it first hit the scene, because it had about 60 players playing it, and it was really fun to be able to progress and be number one. I was pretty good at getting those crowns. So this game already exists, and already, as you see in the Robloxes and the Minecrafts and in anything, even the GTA, anything that you can create a mode, even Fortnite, you have its own versions of Squid Games. You can even see mobile games. It's kind of crazy to see how much people are able to get Squid Game media type on its feet. And like I already mentioned, the merch is already crazy. Squid Games is taking over. So can it be produced, developed by a video game company? That's where I kind of line the question. That's the question I ask you as well, is it possible? I mean, you got to think about the logistics, right? You got to have at least 500 players, kind of like marbles, right? Or you just have a flux of amazing players, and all of a sudden you whittle it down to one. So you need to have something that could hold the servers. You need to be able to have, I think the big issue would be that the mini games would be the issue. Because what makes the show so exciting is you don't know what's going to happen. The people that are involved don't know what's going to happen. But once the game is already out, people are going to know the mini games. And I think right there, it's going to be the biggest, I guess the term of social media, red flag when it comes to producing this game, is that eventually people are going to know how to play the games, and they're going to eventually sweat it out. It's with the same thing what happened to Fall Guys. And I am one of them to admit that I was one of those people that sweated. I knew exact the same routes. So if you were playing the game for the first time, it wouldn't have that same experience. It would feel cheap in the entire product of the Squid Games genre, or the Squid Games, I guess, medium of itself, of being based on the show. Because that show is high stakes. Of course, I know it's a television show, so when some character dies or whatever, it really has a huge impact. In the video game world, it doesn't have that same impact. So in a multiplayer sense, even if, like I mentioned, the Minecrafts, the Roblox, the GTAs, it's not going to have that same impact, simply because people could play it over and over and over and over again. It will require an insane amount of mini games for you not to feel like you know what you're doing. And also, combined with the amount of people who are trying to get social media numbers, whether through TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, even on watching live on stream on the respective platforms of Twitch and YouTube, there's just going to be so many people who are going to grind it out to the point where it doesn't matter if you die. And that is the special, spectacular thing about Squid Games. But that doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just not going to be able to happen on a surface level. You're going to have to add stakes. And there's a way to add stakes in video games that I think a lot of people are haven't really figured out. And I would say that if you were able to create a character, kind of like a sim, establish them, maybe add a backdrop, maybe add a story, maybe every time you win, you're given a new character that has different traits. Maybe they run a little bit slower, maybe they're not as strong. And then your goal is to win with this specific character. Maybe it's auto-generated. I then think that you have something there, because then you attach yourself to this character, this virtual character that you're trying to win the money for. And then it's different because, like, the physical attributes, like just like in the movie, or I'm sorry, the TV show, every person who's competing has different attributes. Then you're getting something interesting. And if it's online based, then you're getting something going. But the whole thing about logging in with a faceless character and just continuing to try to win at the very end for money, I think that's where it goes wrong. And I think as well is that maybe you kind of add an incentive that the more you win, maybe you add money. And then if you lose it all. You have to add the stakes for it to work. There's not a lot of video game developers that could be able to handle such an historic, at this point, a phenomenon of a iconic franchise, because there's going to be more Squid Games. I believe the season 2 is already ready to roll, but there's going to be more. And I tweeted it out. What would be the developer to be able to handle it? The only one that really comes to mind is Insomniac. Insomniac is the one that's lately doing all the Marvel video games for Spider-Man. Now the Wolverine has been real, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Fantastic, fantastic games that pay huge respects to the medium that it draws source from, inspiration from. You cannot argue that those games really do justice to the Spider-Man characters. And I cannot wait for Wolverine as well. And I would feel that developer would do really well at capturing the essence of Squid Games. So I would definitely have to select one of them. A lot of people gave different instances. One of them was Rockstar, because they're already doing one in their No Pixel role-playing server, which is essentially a fan-created server where people are invited into its own private server, and then people role-play the lives out. And I guess they figured out a way to add stakes to it. I have not yet quite caught it, but I don't think Rockstar would be the one, considering that you need to be very nimble, considering that the games result in death. So there you have it. That's where I'm just thinking about it. I mean, the idea of it sounds awesome, to be not gonna lie. And when I watched a couple of shows, I was like, somebody's gonna have to capitalize on a mature version of Fall Guys. Fall Guys in itself is really good. It's very bubbly. But what Squid Game says is, like, you could have that same game show kind of vessel, but when you surround it with gore and violence, then you have something. And obviously, a lot of people around the world vibe with it. I would say that is kind of like the main attraction, but the real brunt of the meat of it is the acting in itself and the performances and the writing. Of course, minus a VIP scene. If you haven't seen it, don't worry, I'm not ruining anything, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Those VIP scenes, yikes, the dialogue is yikers. But let me know in the comments down below what you think about what's going to be a Squid Game, the video game, what's going to come out on. It's going to be a PC, it's going to be PlayStation 5. No doubt there has to be a developer out there trying to figure out How they're going to get the license of that in itself is going to cost a lot of money. So it's going to have to be a huge AAA studio to be able to take on the feat. But this has been the 10-Minute Checkpoint Podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to see more, be sure to click on the previous videos. And if you're watching or listening on a podcast service as your favorite, be sure to rate it high. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, oh yeah, peace. Green light.
Checkpoint.